Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 7-game Major League Baseball slate that starts at 6 o'clock. There's also a late slate that just only includes the 2 games, the St. Louis, Texas game, and Chicago Cubs and San Diego game later, too. So you can keep that in mind, and you can use this write-up and stuff for that as well. Before I get started, though, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really does help the channel a lot. I really do appreciate it. And also, make sure to drop a home run call in the comments below. So with that said, let's get into our plays today. I have some core plays here in William Contreras, Cabrian Hayes, and Nick Castellanos. But let's get our pitchers first here. And so I'm going to show you Nola and Snell are our top 2 pitchers for the P1 option. They both have some good upside, but also haven't pitched particularly great this season, so they do have some risk involved. Neither one of them are a must-play by any stretch of imagination, and they're a little pricey on this particular slate, but I do think one of them is probably a viable option. I actually probably like Snell a little bit better than Nola, despite Nola being in a better situation. Then for P2 options, we have Brad Garrett, Ovidio for Pittsburgh, Abbott for Cincinnati, and Mayers for Kansas City. All in play, all risky, all have risky matchups, all have some downsides to these matchups, but they have the most upside of any of the other pitchers on the slate. A lot of these guys have really shaky upside. So let's go ahead and get into our catchers here. We're going to look at William Contreras first for catcher. Now, he is the top play. Though, if you do want to use Abbott, who is a rookie pitcher that does get some strikeouts, then you may want to avoid Milwaukee. But Milwaukee does have good upside in this matchup, especially with this game being at Cincinnati. And he draws some great metrics for this matchup. I like his upside. I like his home run potential, and so he's a viable play here. If you want to go off of him, then the Wilson Contreras for St. Louis is in play, though he hasn't hit the ball quite as well this season, and he's been slumpy up and down. He does have home run metrics for this matchup, and he had a home run yesterday, so I do like his potential again. You could also consider JT Realmuto, Alejandro Kirk, and Tyler Stevenson at this position. But as for catcher, there's not a ton of value here outside of the top option. It is possible some value opens up when we find out some more starters if somebody that isn't expected to start does actually draw start. But overall, I think one of the Contrerases or Kirk or Stevenson are probably your best bets on this particular slate. Moving to first base, we're going to look at Paul Goldschmidt first, who has really good metrics for this matchup. He's hitting the ball well this season. He has home run potential. Though he hasn't hit the home runs like we expected, he still has a decent ability here, and he has good potential in this matchup. He's also the top WOBA and ISO guy on the slate for first base, so I do like him from that perspective as well. Vlad Jr. comes in a little bit under that, but he definitely has the metrics here to be good, though he has been slumpy lately, but he seems like maybe he's starting to get out of it, and if that's the case, then he's definitely a viable option, especially being a little bit cheaper than Goldschmidt. Then we'll look at Noda for Oakland. And he draws some really interesting metrics for being a Hail Mary play today. He has hit the ball okay, especially lately, and he has a favorable matchup here. Great metrics for this situation, though he has been robust, so he's a Hail Mary call on the slate. And then Spencer Steer, he draws some really nice metrics here against Tehran, and he has some good situational upside here. And I don't suspect that this game will be that hard for Cincinnati to get some earned runs here, so I do like him here as well. Doing a Milwaukee-Cincinnati stack from the batting position is definitely something you could choose to do today. You could also consider Nate Lowe, Michael Brasso, Brandon Belt, Carlos Santana, Connor Joe, and Lincoln Baker at this position as well. First base is very deep as usual, and plenty of options in different price ranges with lots of home run potential. That's pretty common for first base, but that fits really well today as well. So moving to second base, we'll look at Tommy Edman. Now, Edman can play outfield as well, and he has some really good metrics for this matchup. He's also priced pretty fairly, though he is a little bit higher than he has been. He has been in a slump but he has managed to score some fantasy points even despite that. He does have good metrics for this matchup, and I really like his upside. Then we'll look at an expensive option here in Marcus Semien, who's way expensive, but draws incredible upside as he's hitting the ball really well this season. Also has home run potential now. He started off pretty rough for a couple weeks, but he has been really good, especially lately, and though his price makes him very hard to roster today. A cheaper option is Jonathan India, who has really good metrics for this matchup. If you like Cincinnati here, he's going to be somebody that's worth considering at this position. With him being a little bit cheaper than Simeon, he's a great alternative to him. And then if you need a real value play beyond Edman, then Castro for Pittsburgh is in a great spot here. He's hitting the ball okay this season, and had several two-hit games the last 5 games. I like his upside. He's got a good alternative to Edman, and he has home run metrics here are off the charts. You could also consider Jake Cronenworth, Whit Merrifield at this position. It's a good day for second base. Plenty of decent options in different price ranges. Even the also considered options are pretty decent. So I think this is a good situation for second base, which typically doesn't have that many good options. Moving into third base, we're going to start with Arenado for St. Louis. Now, he has been extreme up and down this season. He seems to go on streaks of games where he has lots of home runs, and then he just doesn't do anything for a while. And he did a home run 3 games ago, and then he's had 2 straight subpar games. Though I do think that he might be pulling out of a slump again, and if that's the case, he's going to have home run potential here. He's got good metrics here, and this is a great situation for him. Then we'll look at Brian Hayes for Pittsburgh, who I think is a core play just because he's got good metrics for this matchup. He's also had some really good games lately. I like his upside, and he draws some interesting metrics for this situation. Alex Bregman is also in play as a kind of a contrarian option off of Arenado. He's a little bit cheaper too, but he does feel better than the matchup metrics view him as Manoah has not been nearly the player he's been in the past, so I do like his potential here. You can also consider Michael Brasso, Patrick Wisdom, and Miguel Garcia here as kind of value plays. It's not really as deep as I expected, but still has some decent options here at third base, though it's probably the weakest third base that I've seen in a while. Per fantasy purposes. Maybe in the shortstop, we're going to start with Trey Turner for Philly. Now, he draws some really good metrics here. His metrics are simply off the charts for this matchup, though he has been slumpy up and down lately, and so I do think he's kind of a boomer bust play as an expensive option, but he definitely draws the metrics to be viable here. Bobby Witt is also in play today for Kansas City, and he draws some nice metrics as well. He's also got home run potential, but his batting average is also pretty weak, and he's been up and down throughout the season. I also like Garrett, the pitcher, against him, but he might be the one guy for Kansas City that really breaks through today. And then we'll look at Andrew Monastero for Milwaukee. Now, this is an interesting situation. Now, he may not play today, so you do have to be clear of that, but he has a Hail Mary call here. He's played 5 games, and he's had hits in all of them, and he's had at least 8 fantasy points in 3 of the 5, and he draws a really good situation here as well with the pitching situation. So he is high risk, high reward, and if he draws a start, though, he's somebody to consider, especially if he can help you pay down at this position. Also consider Corey Seager, Bo Bichette, and Matt McLain. Shortstop is very top-heavy with expensive options and a Hail Mary choice, essentially. So it's going to be hard to figure out this position, especially if Montserrato is out today, so we'll have to wait and see on that, though. Maybe the outfielders, we have some top plays. Juan Soto, Tatis Jr., Jake Fraley, George Springer, and Alvarez are all in play. Soto is by far the best of those 5, with Fraley being second and Springer being third. Tatis and Yordan Alvarez are a little bit pricey, but are definitely viable on the slate. Then we're going to get into our value plays here. We'll start with Yelich for Milwaukee. Now, he is pretty expensive at $4,700, but he's hit the ball pretty well lately, and he has home run potential, though he hasn't hit the home runs this season that we expect him to do. He's got a favorable matchup here in Cincinnati. Castellanos for Philly is a core play today. He has hit the ball really well lately and throughout the season, 316 batting average. He doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but he has the metrics today to do it, and he's priced pretty fairly. McCutchen was a borderline core play for me here. A little bit weaker than Castellanos, though, but he is a good option either with Castellanos as a double option outfield or as a contrarian to him. He has hit the ball pretty well, and he has home run potential in this situation. Tommy Edman can also play in this position, which I mentioned him earlier at second base, and it's great. This has some nice upside here. Barchot for Toronto has hitting the ball better lately, and he's starting to score fantasy points and has home run potential in this matchup. Seems like he's finally starting to hit pretty well, and he's averaged almost 7.5 fantasy points per game in the last 10. and he's got a great matchup here. Then Connor Joe is in play for Pittsburgh. Now he can also play first base, but I really just recommend him in the outfield if you use him, as he is a good value play, but he does feel somewhat risky here. But a Pittsburgh stack you could definitely do on this slate, especially since Pittsburgh guys are pretty cheap and they have a really favorable matchup. Though he is a little risky, as he's kind of a boomer best play. Joey Wimmer for Milwaukee is a Hail Mary approach today, as he has good metrics. He's hitting the ball well lately, but he tends to be boomer bust most of the time. So I do think he's hitting the ball better, so that gives him some opportunity here as his metrics are off the charts. You could also consider Brian De La Cruz, Siu Suzuki, Kyle Tucker, MJ Melendez, and Bryce Harper at this position. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.